Good morning, Facebook friends. Helen Arcantu here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am so happy to have some time with you today on this Thursday. And for those of you who are YWTV regulars, you know that Thursday is when we share the mic now with Black women in our community to share their stories. And we have another great story for you today. I'm so grateful to have with me today our guest, Anita Elaine Rivers. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you, Helen. Glad to be here.
So glad to have you here. For those of you who maybe have been following, Anita and I have been doing a little bit of a swap back and forth between our shows. I had the absolute honor, and it was so exciting because it was the first time I was ever on a radio show. I had the opportunity to be on her radio show at FDU, which we're going to talk about today. Just two weeks ago now, right?
About two
It
weeks
was
ago, yes.
just almost 2 weeks to the day. I was over at your studio taping, and and here we are now having you in ours. So wonderful and appreciative of that opportunity, and so looking forward to talking with you today. So, with that, let me tell you all a little bit about Anita. She is the executive director of community relations at Fairleigh Dickinson University. And as I said, I was just on her talk show last week, which was such a great experience. She is a quintessential non traditional student, an adult learner, a single parent, a first generation college graduate, and a lifelong learner. With over 40 years of professional experience and service to the community for sure. She works with FDU and focuses on expanding their footprint into communities throughout New Jersey and beyond. She is a board member of the Meadowlands Chamber of Commerce, the Teaneck Chamber of Commerce, the Bergen County Workforce Development Board, and she's also a former board member of Bergen Volunteers and Hackensack Regional Chamber of Commerce. She is an active member in the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey, the Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Committee, the Fort Lee Chamber of Commerce, and the Commerce and Industry Association of New Jersey, as well as other businesses and nonprofit organizations. She is always out in the community supporting organizations and good work. And she is an avid supporter as well of STEM education for Black and Brown youth here in Bergen County. In addition to her administrative work at FDU, she is also an adjunct professor and a doctoral student pursuing her degree in higher education, her doctorate in higher education. Her weekly radio show is called Talking Points with Elaine Rivers, and it broadcasts on Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. over at WFDU 89.1 and on iHeartRadio. Most importantly, she is the mother of her daughter Alana, who is a brave new entrepreneur. And what a great mom to have when you're an entrepreneur who is involved in so many chambers and helping support and develop the community as you do. Welcome, Anita, again. So wonderful to hear all that you do. I know, because I see you everywhere, out in the community. And it's not until recently that we actually got the opportunity to truly connect. But you were it's not as if I didn't know who you were. It just opportunity had not come until more recently for that. I think it was a CINJ event just a few months ago.
I agree. Yes, yes. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Helen. And I have to share this with you. I don't know whether I fully explain this to you in terms of my connection with you and this platform that you introduced in 2020. And I can tell you it was a lifeline because, as we were going through pandemic and the social injustices, the murder of George Floyd, to have an opportunity to hear someone like yourself, introduce other African Americans who are doing such great things in the community to kind of, change the narrative, to really issue a level of hope was just tremendous. And so I have to really thank you for that and doing that on Facebook.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. This is uh, this little space has definitely become a lifeline and a real opportunity. And I think over these last 2 years, I really have, if I didn't know it before, I really know now the power of stories.
Mhm. Mhm. I
And
I totally agree. Yeah.
yeah, and how important they are for us to hear, and to learn and to listen. I should say listen probably first, in that list, and how much that individually and collectively we get from that experience. So
Absolutely.
and I think that's what a lot of what we have in common too, in terms of how you do your work, and you kind of manifest your calling in action, as far as I can see from all I've learned about you over time, for sure. So
Mhm.
tell me about your work at FDU. You've had an important amount of time of your life there connected to the university. You've watched it
Absolutely.
change a lot over that time.
Mhm, mhm. Change
And
and grow, and, it's really morphing into a very prominent institution of higher education in this region, and I don't say that just because I work there, but, having been there for 16 years, I kind of I know the ins and outs pretty much, and although people come and go, I think the overall philosophy about the institution striving to become a prominent regional institution of higher education, and not just as a place for people to be attracted, but as a place in which we really want to flow out and into the surrounding communities, and be the resource that institutions of higher education or institutions of learning really should be. And so I really take that to heart. And I share with you in terms of labor of love, and the idea of storytelling, because I was groomed by my grandmother. My grandmother is Trudy Griffin, and she was the family storyteller. And I can remember, as long as I can remember, sitting next to my grandmother Trudy, and her sharing with me some of her stories, rich, rich stories about her trials and tribulations growing up as an African American. She was born in 1903, so you can imagine the climate,
mm,
social climate. But she wasn't one to to not communicate the fullness of her experiences. And I appreciate it more now than I did then, I have to admit. But her sharing the stories of growing up through Jim Crow, uh,
mm,
having been reared in the South, in Georgia and Florida, and then coming to New Jersey back in the 1920s. Um, and her experiences here in New Jersey, right here in Hackensack, are such that to some may cause anger and bitterness. And I can tell you, as a young adult, I probably was in that space. But now, as I reflect upon those stories, can so appreciate uh, the importance of taking on one's life experience with a full commitment to allow it to do what we need it to do in our lives. You know,
mm,
I think if we don't do that, we're shortchanging ourselves. And so I bring all of that to my work at FDU and my work in the community, in terms of community relations. But I can tell you, it has been such an honor being an adjunct professor, and working with first year students, and being able to communicate with them who I am. I'm very quick to say I'm not your average grandma. They may look at the white hair and think, oh, but no, I'm not your average grandma. I'm going to challenge you, but more importantly, I want to share with you my lived experiences, because I think that through this educational exchange, this intellectual exchange, that we can eventually change the
mm,
social climate. We can impact racism, and cause it to end at some point in time. But I think our young people really need to pick up the baton and run with it, through exposure and through listening and through storytelling. That's why what you're doing is so important, Helen. And I really credit you for all that you're doing.
Well, I have to say it's so wonderful to hear about your grandmother, and then just to, kind of, draw the lines of how that, really helped shape your path. Thinking about, all the places that you are sharing your story, and you are, a prominent voice shaping so many people and so many groups, based on the impact and the places that you've chosen to serve and spend your time. What has it been like for you? I mean, obviously you've been in this space, you know, and the work that you're doing. I mean, we talked about you being, you know, uh, over 40 years of professional experience and kind of evolving in these, service spaces. And you are, a woman who's a leader, and you are a Black woman who is a leader, and, clearly forging, and, we talk about breaking the glass ceiling, and, making space for others. I mean, you clearly are creating space in a lot of places that, and have been, for some time, that when you got there, I'm assuming you were maybe the only one, if not one of the only ones.
It has been an interesting journey, to say the least. And it's been, character building, if you will. And I have to say that I'm wiser today. And because of uh, the wisdom that I've garnered throughout the years, it has helped me to become the person that I am today. And while I don't want to sound naive, I do want to say that I lead with my faith. I believe in God. I lead with love and compassion. And I'm not one to look at someone based upon the color of their skin as people look at me. Um, but I've learned to get past that because I know who I am now. But I didn't always know that. And I have to attribute it back to my grandmother again, because she had an eighth grade education. But when she walked into an environment, she took command of that environment, not from a verbal or a very overt way, but she had that level of self-confidence that she carried with her. And she infused that in me. I didn't realize it at the time, but now as I'm growing older, I recognize it, and I allow it to emerge in everything that I do. So, no, it hasn't been easy. In some cases, it hasn't been pleasant. But as a pioneer, as a leader, I take that responsibility with full commitment. That that is the space in which I am to operate. That is the space in which I am to have an impact. And so, even at Fairleigh Dickinson, I'm part of the Professional Administrative Senate, and that organization gives a voice to the professional community at FDU, and I take that role very seriously. So, while from a human perspective, there have been some hurtful things that have occurred during the course of my travels within the professional world. And there still are some very hurtful things. But I'm at a place in my life whereby I know who I am. And it's with that confidence that I'm able to accomplish what I set out to accomplish. I don't allow some of these things that used to trip me up when I was a young adult trip me up any longer, because I know at this stage of my life that there's so much that I need to accomplish. You
Mm,
know, we talk about racism and impact as an African American, but to my surprise, even ageism
mm,
has become a part of this whole picture, and it took me by surprise. I have to be quite honest with you initially, but I said no, I'm not going to allow it to trip me up. So when I'm in social situations, you know, I go in as myself, and I try to go in with a level of confidence so that I'm able to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And I take seriously my role at Fairleigh Dickinson and my role as the community relations advocate, because I believe in education. I
mm,
believe that knowledge is truly power, but I also know that it's only as good as the action that follows.
mm,
And so as
mm.
an adjunct professor, I have a captive audience with my students, and I'm able to communicate to them the importance of gaining the knowledge, becoming critical thinkers, but then taking the baton in whatever lane they choose, taking the baton and running with it, because knowledge without the action results in nothing.
Yes, yes. And I have to say that that's really, as one of what areas we try to focus on at the YW is kind of not only giving people that kind of baseline understanding, of our work around eliminating racism, but then giving them a to-do list so that as they feel more comfortable in that space, that they then, have some action items, because it definitely is you need those two pieces together for sure for us to be able to make the difference. And I'm noting in your bio how you talked about your daughter and that she's a new entrepreneur, and I'm thinking about your grandmother, thinking about you, um, and she's obviously launched herself into an entrepreneurial space, which is definitely something that you know needs bravery and needs confidence, and obviously lots of other pieces woven in as well. When you're talking with your daughter, when you're talking with your students, um, you know how is it that you uh, continue to reinforce that confidence and that space of being able to move, kind of that thought of maybe I should, to do it,
Mhm.
despite all the layers of what else we could be carrying that could stop us from that do it.
Well, you know, that's interesting because when you think of pandemic and its impact on our younger generation, and it also has impacted my daughter's entrepreneurial pursuits to some degree. And so she's trying to get her sea legs back together so that she can move
Yeah.
forward in that pursuit. But when you think in terms of pandemic, I always communicate, especially to my students, how resilient they already are, and to acknowledge that resilience. And I think that once our young people really sit back and think about it, you know, they came through a pandemic. I mean, that's something that the world has never experienced before, and they came back, or they came through it in a sense that it represents a hopeful future.
Mm.
So I remember saying to my students, you wouldn't be here, you know, at the university if you didn't have hope for your future. You know, my daughter, in our conversations about her entrepreneurial pursuits, um, we wouldn't have those conversations if she was not hopeful for the future. So, in that comes that self discovery, you know, understanding that there's already a layer of resilience and strength that perhaps, you know, was never acknowledged or never realized. And with that, that serves as kind of the launching point. Build from there. Small steps. You can't eat an elephant in one bite. It takes small bites along the way, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of approach it in that respect, and really work to inspire. I'm like the cheerleader, and my students, I think, would agree in that. I come into the classroom and I'm full of energy, and I'm challenging, and I cause them to get up out of their chairs and come to the front of the class and to talk about their day or their experiences about whatever it is we happen to be talking about, because I want to empower them as they begin to really discover who they are through the academic experience at the university, and then also with my daughter and our personal conversations.
Yeah, I love kind of bringing folks back to kind of that resilience. That they wouldn't be at the university. Your daughter wouldn't be starting a business. You wouldn't be at those stages, and reminding them because sometimes the way that these last few years have passed,
Mm.
right? I mean, we were made very aware and kind of had a spotlight on a lot of issues that were not new. They just obviously we were just all stopped long enough to be able to focus on them again. But once we started moving, right, it's almost like your brain flips back a little bit at times. And so, putting everyone back into that space of reminding them, you know, that happened
Mhm.
and now you're here, is so key and empowering.
And how can we learn from, I mean, the atrocities, the
Yeah.
social atrocities that have occurred? How can we learn from it? How can we grow? How can we change things? I think is the most important thing, and that's really the impetus behind my radio show, Talking Points with Elaine Rivers
Yes.
on WFDU 89.1 FM, and so happy to have had you as a guest. I believe that our conversation was rich, and it was purposeful, in that you were able to talk a lot about yourself, and with candor about how you were groomed to assume leadership in such a prominent organization such as the YWCA Northern New Jersey. And so, like you, I look for ways to empower. I look for ways to uplift. I look for ways to have the conversation, because so much can be accomplished if we can just sit down and talk to one another,
Yeah. Yeah.
listen to one another, reflect on the conversations, and respond, right? Because there are different styles of listening, but if we're active listeners and we're really taking in what it is we're talking about, it can't help but get down into into our inner beings, and if we are truly reflective, uh, we cannot help but digest it and then translate it into what it means in our own spheres of influence.
Yes, and I think I have to say from the experience on being on your show and the conversation we had, and my experience doing this, I think if people and we know they do, right? So if they're taking the time to listen, it changes you.
Mhm.
Everything you learn changes you in some way. And obviously I know that we both share the hope and the desire that that's building a bridge, to a different place. But I have to ask you, as a woman in radio, though, um, again, you're a pioneer in a space, right? What is that? What was that like? What made you jump into that space, right? That in the first place, because it's not something everyone has access to or even, things to connect with. And then, what has that journey been like? Obviously, the show is, as I've listened to others, others broadcasts, and as I said, I had the experience. I mean, you get in there deep, for sure.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience and journey and opportunity. And I have to say that I majored in broadcast journalism at New York University, and so Barbara Walters was one of my early mentors, and I remember having had the opportunity to go to one of the TV stations as part of a trip sponsored by NYU to hear her broadcast. She was in the studio, and I was behind the scenes listening to her. It goes back a while, but Brenda Blackman
Yes.
is an FDU alum
Mm.
and member of our board of trustees, and I've had a wonderful opportunity to talk with her. She's guested on my show, and she was an early pioneer in the broadcast industry, and so the transition from my interest in TV to radio really came to fruition when I joined FDU and I started
Mm.
taking classes because I wanted to keep up my skills. I'd taken several detours based on life decisions, and so was not able to enter the broadcast industry as I had initially hoped. But I thought, at FDU, because the classes were available, that I would venture into the classes. Met with the general manager of WFDU. I actually started as a contemporary gospel DJ. Sound of Victory was my program with my colleague, Minister EJ, and we were on Friday nights from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. for about 6 or 7 years, and then I segued into the talk show format. Based upon the general manager at the time offering that as an opportunity. And so I haven't looked back, and always looking forward to guests that will come on and share their honest stories about their leadership, their influence, their impact. So that's just the way that the journey has progressed.
Well, yeah, I appreciate and love you sharing how, your time at FDU, helped that piece unfold, because I know for me, it's so identified with you. For me, when I think about you, I think about your radio show, and let me just say, you've got a great voice. So I am not surprised. I love, it's so soothing, it's so strong, it's so powerful. And I love that, it just reminds us, right, how important it is to, when you get into an educational institution, just really be open to where and I'm going to say where the wind blows you, right? Because it may not be what you expected for yourself, but just, look at the impact that has had. And wow, I mean, talk about Barbara Walters and Brenda Blackman as being,
Mentors.
mentors, is that's no joke.
Yeah, yeah. And so you can imagine I'm able to communicate that to my students.
Yeah.
They'll come in and they'll think, okay, I'm going to pursue this area. And I challenge them, yes, stay on course, but also consider, all of these possibilities. It can really help to shape a broader perspective. And of course, the university's mission is that we create or we emphasize that of becoming global citizens.
Mm.
And that's precisely what our mandate is for those of us who are administrators and those of us who are professors and educators.
Yeah. Well, so for our viewers, I want to make sure that you see here, we have up on the screen for you where you can connect with Anita's broadcast, which she broadcasts under Elaine Rivers, and on Sunday mornings at 7 a.m., as we said, on WFDU 89.1 and on iHeartRadio. Also, you can follow on Twitter or on Facebook to also stay connected to her and to the shows. Um, I have to say, although when I was walking across the campus, as I said, almost 2 weeks to the day to come meet you, I was really struck at how much FDU has grown and changed over the year, because I am someone who's lived in the area for so many years. So I've watched the evolution, and obviously because of the pandemic, at least for me, I hadn't really been on the campus proper in a
Mhm.
few years because of obviously being in quarantine for so everyone being kind of shut down for so long. But I have to say, it was such an amazing environment to be in, and there was something so magical about being like popped in the middle of the city, close to so many highways and yet so secluded, and such vitality and activity happening right on the campus, walking through, not to mention that it was stunning and beautiful spaces to be able to sit and really soak in the learning. So I just want to say that, although I know that's not the focus of this conversation, but before we leave each other, and as I always say, these times go too quick, and that's why we always leave the door open for another conversation at another time, because there's
Mhm.
always more to
Mhm.
say for sure. Any last thoughts to leave us with, before we say goodbye today, Anita?
Well, I want to echo what you've just stated about FDU. It's certainly a part of the community, and it is a resource. And there are tremendous young minds being cultivated at the university, and they too want to connect with the community. And so, if anyone has any opportunities or any desire to connect with FDU from that perspective, with students as interns, volunteers, or if anyone is interested in pursuing some level of programming, we offer associates to doctoral degrees. And of course, I'm in the midst of my doctoral program, and I expect to have my EDD by next year. That's something
Well,
that's on my bucket list for a long time. But in my final words is that of Arthur Fletcher, and that is, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. It
mm,
truly is. But again, knowledge is power, but action brings about change. Let's work together to bring about change, right?
absolutely. Well, I have my arm linked in yours, and I appreciate all that you've shared today, and even more so all that you do, and just that what a gift for anyone who gets to be in your class, who gets to work alongside of you in the community. You really have been such a change agent, and so steadfast in what you bring to the table. And so glad that we have you. We have you as such a gem in our community, and look forward to doing more together for sure. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Helen. It's been such an honor to be on YWTV.
and for our viewers, again, I just want to make sure you know where to connect with Anita and on her show and in the community. When we have everything for you up on the screen, we've got links for you in the comments. Also, check out FDU's website at www.fdu, or I should say www.fdu.edu. So much more to learn there about the university and about Elaine, Anita's wonderful work. For us, check out our website as well. So much happening at the YW this time of year. So many great programs, including very shortly at noon today, we're having our When on the Go Financial Wellness series that is all about helping support entrepreneurs in planning and goal setting, which is happening in just about 20 minutes. So you can still have time to jump on and join us for that 1 hour virtual conversation. So many other important programs happening, whether it's for girls, whether it's for women in the workforce, and of course, all of our great racial justice programming. I do encourage you to check out our website and stay connected to our social media pages so that you can be in the know and join us. And I also want to just shout out two other opportunities. One, all year long, we'll be part of a distribution site for free period care packages. We're partnering with the Flow Initiative and Project Local Access to support menstrual equity. So we do encourage you, if you would like to make a donation, or if you know someone who could benefit from getting a period care package, which is about 90 days worth of menstrual supplies at no cost, you should reach out to us. The information will be a link in the comments here for you. And also, we hope you join us on November 1st for our Walking the Talk Gala. As Anita said, it is always about the action, not just about the education and the words. And this is where we celebrate all the great work that's been done, not only by the YW, but some amazing leaders in the community who really live our mission every day. And we look forward to honoring them and celebrating all the good work that we do. And with that, we wish everyone a wonderful day. Stay healthy, stay well, and get moving, get into action. As Anita said, this is your inspiration for the day.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Anita. Call to action. Call to action. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.